In a world where power wears expensive suits and corruption hides in polished offices, the most dangerous man is the one nobody notices. Marcus Johnson could have lived a life of luxury after all. He was a self-made billionaire. But instead of yachts and private jets, he chose a mop and a janitor's uniform. Because Marcus knew something the powerful had forgotten. The people who clean up the messes are the ones who see everything. When two racist cops humiliated him, they had no idea they were insulting the man who owned their precinct. And when a web of corruption reached from the police station all the way to the Vatican, Marcus proved that justice doesn't always come from a courtroom sometimes. It comes from the silent man in the shadows, armed with a bucket, a wiretap, and a razor-sharp mind. This is the story of how a billionaire janitor became the most feared man in the underworld, and why the powerful should never underestimate the guy holding the mop. Let us know where you're watching from, and what time you found this video. We read every single comment. Marcus Johnson came to the police station with his mop and bucket in his hand. The sun had not yet risen over the city of Crestwood at the time of his arrival. As of 5:30 in the morning, the building was mostly vacant, which was just how he wanted it. On a daily basis, Marcus would do tasks such as polishing the floors, emptying the garbage, and wiping down the desks. Even though the majority of the policemen rarely looked in his direction, he took satisfaction in the job that he did. However, today was not like today. The two cocky and entitled police officers, Dan Riggs and Kyle Murphy, who are notorious for their arrogance, walked into the station just as Marcus was closing off his shift. The floor had just been swept, and their boots were leaving a trail of muck behind them as they scowled at him. He yelled out, "Hey, old man," Riggs said. "You missed a spot." He purposefully pushed over Marcus' bucket, causing soapy water to cascade over the tiles. "You missed a spot." Murphy laughed as he pushed the mop away from him. "Yeah, maybe if you did your job right, we wouldn't have to step in your mess." The black eyes of Marcus remained steady as he gently inhaled. In the past, he had worked with individuals who were similar to them. Men who believed that a badge gave them the authority to treat people as if they were dirt. However, he did not respond. The only thing he did was bend down and pick up his mop. Exactly at that moment, Chief Reynolds entered the room, his face contorted with rage. "Riggs." "Murphy." "My office now," assuming that this was about some insignificant paperwork problem. The cops exchanged smirks with one another. However, as they entered the building, they became rigid. Currently, Marcus Johnson was seated at the chief's desk. However, he was not dressed in the clothing that janitors typically wear. His stance was dominant, and he was clothed in a suit that was fitted to perfection. The chief was standing next to him with his arms folded. As Riggs sneered, he said, "What the hell is this?" The tone of Marcus's voice was calm yet chilly as he came forward. "Gentlemen, allow me to reintroduce myself. Marcus Johnson, owner of this precinct's building, and majority stakeholder in Crestwood's police funding committee." Murphy's face became a pallid color. That's impossible." As Marcus moved a document across the desk, he said, "Oh, it's very possible. Property deeds, bank information, and most incriminating of all, a list of every complaint that had ever been lodged against the two policemen were all included inside the package. You see, I bought this place 6 months ago, and I've been working as the janitor to see how things really operate." It seemed as if Riggs' mouth was opening and closing like a fish. You can't do this." Marcus gave a smirk. He glanced to Chief Reynolds, who had put 2 notices of suspension in front of them. "Actually, I am able to, and I just did. You're both on unpaid leave pending an internal investigation, according to the executive director. And if even half of these complaints are true, you'll be lucky to keep your badges." Those policemen were at a loss for words throughout the whole process. The individual whom they had ridiculed, humiliated, and mistreated had been their supervisor. As they were being led out of the building, Marcus took up his mop once again, this time with a smirk that conveyed a sense of contentment. After they had left, he yelled out, "Oh, and boys, you missed a spot. Within a few of weeks, the whole area went through a significant transformation. Marcus ensured that every janitor, cashier, and worker that was neglected was handled with decency. Body cameras were required, and sensitivity training was strictly enforced." Where do Riggs and Murphy stand? The story of their humiliation went worldwide, and it became a warning tale for anybody who had the audacity to misjudge the quiet guy with the mop. Eventually, they were eliminated from their positions. Because, in the end, true power is not in a badge. Rather, it is in being perfectly aware of the people with whom you are interacting. The news of the humiliation of the racist police officers spread like wildfire. The tale had been shared on social media by lunchtime, and by nightfall, it had become a hot topic throughout the country. The local news stations took it up and dubbed it the Janitor Who Owned the Police. Reporters camped out in front of the precinct, seeking interviews with Marcus, but he kept silent, at least for the time being. Within the confines of the station, the remaining cops engaged in hushed conversations. A few of them felt embarrassed that they hadn't spoken out sooner. A number of people were anxious, wondering if Marcus had also been keeping an eye on them. For the very first time, the bullies were not the ones in charge of the situation, and the atmosphere was heavy with tension. While all was going on, Riggs and Murphy were sitting in a seedy tavern, stifling their anger with cheap whiskey. As Riggs slammed his glass to the ground, he snarled, "This ain't over in any way. No damn janitor, no matter how rich, is gonna ruin us," while Murphy nodded. His eyes were black. "We need leverage. Something to take him down." Marcus got a tip from an unknown source 1 week later, which was about a rumored drug sale that was taking place in a seedy neighborhood. It was his custom to send it to the chief, but something about it didn't seem quite right. All of the particulars were too specific and handy. He made the decision to conduct his own investigation, since he was curious. The next evening, Marcus showed up to the abandoned warehouse wearing an all-black outfit, rather than the janitor's uniform he had been wearing. His military training, which he seldom acknowledged in the past, kicked in as he walked discreetly across the room. He entered the building, and the door banged shut behind him as he arrived. The lights suddenly came on. There, Riggs and Murphy stood, cocky, surrounded by two sleazy law enforcement officers who were devoted to them. Sneering, Murphy said, "Look who finally showed up," and he was right. "Thought you were smarter than this, boss." No panic set in for Marcus. All he did was grin. "You boys really don't learn, do you?" Taking out his phone, Riggs began filming everything. He gave a signal to one of the officers, who then removed a revolver from his belt and threw it at Marcus's feet. "We got you now. Trespassing, interfering with police business, maybe even armed," he said. Murphy laughed and said, "Oops, looks like the owner just became a felon." Marcus heaved a sigh and then made his way to his phone. The moment he touched the tablet, the doors of the warehouse tore open in an instant. "You are absolutely correct. This is a criminal offense." SWAT units rushed in with their weapons drawn. As they approached, Chief Reynolds, whose face was crimson with rage, marched in behind them. "Riggs, Murphy, drop your weapons now." The policeman became completely still. Murphy's recording phone fell out of his grasp and fell to the ground. Marcus took a step forward and began to pick up the rifle that had been placed with his gloved hand. To illustrate his point, he made a hand toward the SWAT unit and said, "You see, boys, I knew you'd try something stupid. So I had Chief Reynolds track this little meat up. And now you just got caught framing an innocent man. On video." The faces of the officers became white. It was as if they had stepped directly into their own hole. The consequences were really severe. Not only were Riggs and Murphy taken into custody immediately, but their badges were also pulled off in front of the cameras. A wide network of corruption inside the department was brought to light by the shady law enforcement officers who assisted them in changing the state's evidence. Finally, Marcus, who is now a hero in the community, did his first interview. According to what he said to the press, "I did not do this for revenge. I did it because everyone deserves respect, whether they're wearing a badge or pushing a mop." The city as a whole erupted in cheers. Marcus utilized his riches to support community programs, body cameras for every officer, and improved training for officers. Protests for police reform received additional momentum that Marcus exploited to fund these initiatives. Where do Riggs and Murphy stand? They were sentenced to 5 years in jail, which is a sufficient amount of time to reflect on the janitor who outwitted them. After many months, the Crestwood Police Station was rebranded as the Marcus Johnson Justice Center after the change in name. In spite of the fact that the floors continued to shine, the policemen who walked them did so with a sense of modesty. Not as a janitor, but as the proprietor, Marcus continued to arrive at the office early each and every morning. Nevertheless, there were instances when he would take a mop and discreetly wipe up a spill on his own. It is only to keep in mind where he originated from. An elegant black SUV arrived into the Marcus Johnson Justice Center, just as the media frenzy had just begun to calm down. The early light illuminated the badges of 2 agents who were dressed in a smart manner and walked out of the building. Mr. Johnson, the lead agent, who was a lady with eyes that were a piercing green, extended her hand to him. "Special Agent Diaz, FBI. We need to talk." Marcus gave a smirk. "Took you long enough." When Diaz was inside his office, he deposited a substantial file on his desk. "We've been tracking corruption in Crestwood PD for years. Riggs and Murphy were just the tip of the iceberg." She placed her finger on the document. "But you accelerated our timeline." Marcus relaxed his posture. "Let me guess. You wanted me to keep playing janitor, gather more intel?" Diaz gave a little nod. "Until you went rogue and bought the damn station. It wasn't simply a few corrupt police who were the actual adversary. It was the Blue Line Syndicate, a covert network consisting of law enforcement personnel, judges, and politicians who were laundering drug money via assets that had been confiscated. Is it Riggs and Murphy, enforcers who work part-time? Who is the kingpin? Cole Vance, who is the deputy commissioner." The temperature of Marcus's blood dropped. At the reopening of the station a month ago, Vance had extended his hand to shake his hand. The photograph that Diaz handed across the table showed Vance having a meeting with a well-known cartel boss. "He's untouchable. Unless we get hard evidence." A crack appeared on Marcus's knuckles. "Guess I'm mopping up again." When Marcus woke up the next morning, he was dressed in his janitor costume, but this time he had a wire sewed into his clothing. Vance's office was located on the 3rd floor, and it was always closed and cleaned twice a day to look for pests. It was when Vance's regular cleaner phoned in ill that he finally got his break. Marcus offered to help out. While he was inside the office, he accidentally knocked over a plant, which resulted in soil being spilled all over Vance's beautiful Persian carpeting. While Marcus was kneeling to clean, Vance yelled, "Clumsy fool," and then froze in place. For the reason that there, under the desk, is a second computer that is concealed behind a panel. Later that evening, Marcus came back with a hacker who was a member of Diaz's squad. They were able to circumvent the security system, which Marcus had personally updated, and clone Vance's drive in a span of 90 seconds. The documents proved to be a bombshell. Plans for the transport of drugs, the amount of compensation to the judges, for example. Marcus's name was marked on a hit list. Diaz blew a whistle. "We can move in 48 hours. The head of Marcus was shaken. "No, he'll smell a raid. "We need him to run straight into your arms." Marcus spread the word that a dissatisfied law enforcement officer was about to testify about the syndicate and was turning. The bait was taken by Vance. Following his entry into the evidence locker at 3 in the morning, he stuffed a duffel bag with cash and burner phones. Suddenly, the lights came on. Marcus was standing in the doorway, surrounded by Diaz and a SWAT squad. He said, "Are you going somewhere now, Deputy Commissioner?" When Vance heard the click of 20 guns priming, he immediately froze and ran for his pistol. A mop was thrown to him by Marcus. "You missed a spot. The scandal caused the state to be shaken." 27 arrests were made. 4 convictions that were reversed. The article, "The Billionaire Janitor Who Toppled a Corruption Empire," included Marcus's visage and was published in Time magazine. During the reopening of the station, Chief Reynolds presented Marcus with a mop that was plated with gold. "In case it happens," Marcus chuckled, and then he plastered it on the wall of his office. As a last word, wealth and weaponry are not the source of true power. Knowing when to kneel is the key to success, and when to bring others to their knees at the altar of justice. Marcus was having an unusually leisurely morning 3 months after the syndicate takedown when his phone rang with a call from a person he did not recognize that was from the District of Columbia. Number of: "Mr. Johnson, this is Governor Eleanor Shaw. I'd like to discuss a sensitive matter." In person, Crestwood was the location where the private plane belonging to the governor landed that afternoon. While they were walking around the outside of the Justice Center, Shaw, a juggernaut with silver hair and a reputation for demolishing organized crime, did not waste any time. "In getting to the meat of the matter, we've been watching you, Marcus. Your methods are unorthodox, but effective. I want you to replicate your success on a national scale." Marcus arched his brow in surprise. "You want me to mop the entire country?" Shaw gave a sneer. "In a manner of speaking. We're forming a federal task force targeting systemic corruption. No red tape. No leaks. And we need someone who can't be bought, bullied, or intimidated." She then stopped talking. "Someone invisible." When Marcus returned 1 week later, he was standing in a confidential briefing room at the Pentagon, confronting a holographic map of the United States that flashed with red hotspots, which were epicenters of corruption. "These are the untouchables," General Carter stated as he touched the light dot that represented Chicago. "Mayor Donovan's crew makes Vance's operation look like schoolyard bullies. They own judges, prosecutors, even half our field office there." A credential for janitorial work at City Hall was presented to Marcus by Diaz. "Welcome to the Janitor Initiative, Agent Johnson. What's the catch?" Each and every member of the elite squad would be implanted as maintenance personnel, providing the highest level of covert observation possible. It was a golden cesspool that was the City Hall of Chicago. Marcus was standing beneath a painting that said, "Honesty is our policy," when he saw a councilman slipping an envelope to a developer on his first day of work. Rosie, the 72-year-old lunch lady who had been there since Daley was mayor, was the unusual friend who helped him get his break. During the time that she was cleaning the pans, she mumbled, "You're the billionaire janitor, the one who Marcus slipped her a burner phone and said, 'Shh, seen anything unusual in the basement freezers?'" Her eyes shone with a sparkle. "Follow the lobster tails. They're never in season here." Every one of the lobster tails was a hollowed-out boxes that contained encrypted hard drives. These crates contained frozen seafood that was sent weekly from Belize, the offshore accounting practices of Mayor Donovan. Midway through the delivery process, Marcus's crew replaced one of the crates with an identical one. The decoded data showed a bribery network that was worth $400 million and spread over 3 continents. Diaz received a panicked phone just as they were getting ready to launch their raid, which read, "Donovan is fleeing. Private jet to Monaco in 90 minutes." In a hurry, Marcus made his way to the sanitation dock. "Rosie, where's the smelliest garbage truck headed to O'Hare?" It was 30 minutes later that Donovan's limousine was halted by a garbage compactor that was blowing loudly. Marcus entered the room while wearing a hazmat suit and brandished his taser. He wrenched open the door of the limo and said, "Your trash, sir. You have violated the city ordinance, is getting taken out." Not only did the arrest of the mayor make news across the world, but it also made headlines when SWAT discovered lobster tails melting in his suitcase. Marcus and Rosie were presented with the Medal of Freedom by the president at a private ceremony held at the White House. Rosie was still wearing her hairnet at the time. It was the press that yelled out, "How do you keep winning?" An adjustment was made to Marcus's janitorial cap, because nobody suspects the guy holding the mop. Until it's too late. While he was leaving, a young janitor approached him with an anxious expression on his face and said, "Mr. Johnson, I believe that my school board is stealing lunch money." Marcus flashed a grin and then retrieved an additional outfit. A mop handle that had been hollowed down to hold a single rolled piece of paper was delivered by a Swiss guard, who was an unusual courier. The message was encrypted and delivered. An inscription written in Latin that was carved onto the wood read, "The servants see everything." As Marcus unrolled the vellum, he revealed a golden key and coordinates to a secret door in the Vatican's Archivum Secretum. Marcus smiled as he showed off his newfound knowledge. This message, which was attached, was brief and came from the shadow director of Interpol. "His Holiness housekeepers have found irregularities. We need a man who knows how to clean up the holiest of messes. Come as yourself, or better yet, don't." Marcus, who was working as a janitor for the restoration crew of the Vatican museums, rapidly became aware of 3 things that were very important. There are murmurs that travel across marble floors. The polished nuns who cleaned the halls of the apostolic palace were aware of every cardinal's secret. Dust is a reliable indicator of truth. The dust that was used for renovation in the vaults of the Bank of Vatican found evidence of cocaine from Colombia. Accidentally, spilling a mop bucket full of sanctified liquid might cause state-of-the-art security lasers to short-circuit. The water that is considered to be the holiest water is holy water. It was after confession when Sister Lucia, a nun who was 4 feet 10 inches tall and had the eyes of a hawk, gave him a USB drive that had been sealed with wax. She murmured, "The devil wears Prada loafers," before disappearing into the catacombs. This was the moment that he had his breakthrough. A video of Cardinal Vittori blessing pallets of gold bars that were embossed with the emblem of a sanctioned Russian tycoon was the smoking gun. The files were apocalyptic, consisting of a hidden ledger that showed billions of dollars being channeled via pious organizations to armaments traffickers. However, as Marcus attempted to escape, he discovered that the famous Door of the Dead of the Vatican was closed. 6 Swiss guards approached with an unusually aggressive manner, their halberds replaced with suppressed MP7s. The blessed water shorted their electronics just long enough for Marcus to vanish via Bernini's hidden Angel Passage, which is a tunnel that is only known to the janitors who created it in the 17th century. Marcus sighed and said, "Mi scusi," as he activated the emergency sprinklers. It was Pope Francis himself who approved the arrest of Cardinal Vittori at midnight mass. And the crowd was astonished as they saw Interpol officers emerge from confessional booths. The ensuing raid made history. Marcus and Sister Lucia were enjoying a cup of espresso together in the vicinity of the obelisk as dawn dawned over St. Peter's Square. Her observation was made when she saw at his tattered janitor's clothing. "You fight like a Medici," she said. He said, and you spy like a Borgia. At that point, their laughter reverberated as the bells of the Vatican tolled, signaling the beginning of a new plot that was already taking shape in the shadows of their triumph. In the following month, Marcus presented his evidence to the United Nations while dressed in the uniform of a maintenance worker. His testimony was the impetus for the Sanctity Act, which is a worldwide treaty that mandates financial openness for all religious organizations. Right as he stepped down from the stage, the Secretary General presented him with a golden plunger and said, "For when the world gets clogged with lies," Marcus's attention was drawn to a young Buddhist monk who discreetly displayed a cleaning key. This monk was located somewhere in the throng.